I have lexical-gustatory synesthesia. I can taste, and always have tasted, words. I remember when I was a kid and learning to read, I mentioned to my mom that certain words I was learning tasted certain ways, thinking everyone was like that, and didn't understand why she didn't get what I was saying. I can remember when I first went into the Himalayan area way back in 1951. Money, for instance, was not important at all to the local people. But now, finance has become just as important to them as it is to us, and this is a change maybe not for the better. I'm old enough to remember when the polio vaccine was still new. Also, it hadn't been that long since most people who caught pneumonia died from it. These medical breakthroughs were practically miracles. I can remember when Democrats believed that it was the duty of America to fight for freedom over tyranny. So, I remember when I was a kid, I was waiting for my mom to come home when she was working late, and, I was like, oh my God, what happened to her? Is she okay? Did something happen to her getting in the car? I was a little kid, but those are actually early onsets of anxiety. Do you remember when Fabio got hit in the face with a pigeon on the roller coaster, and it broke his nose? Sometimes I feel like I'm the pigeon, and the internet is Fabio's face. Actually, I don't know if I'm the pigeon, or I'm Fabio's face. Depends on the day, I guess. I remember, when I got my first period, I was almost afraid to tell me mother, who's quite an open, loving person. But I felt really weird, the chat just wasn't there. I'm from the colonies, so I remember when the sun never set on the British Empire. I'm old enough to remember when law and order was once the Republican campaign slogan. I remember when Lindbergh arrived in Paris, I was one of the first persons to know about his landing, because as the French people know that I was born in St. Louis. Thinking I would be very proud to announce it to the public, they gave me the news first. I was then starring in the Folies Bergerac. I remember when the Atkins diet arrived, I lost 16 pounds in the first month, but when I stopped, it all went back on again. I learned English kind of late. I remember when I got my first opportunity to work in America, I didn't speak a lot of English, so I only really knew my lines for the movie I was doing. I remember when I was growing up, my great wish was to understand who I was and how I fit in the world. I remember when I was in Rent, Daphne Rubin Vega threw a party. At the time, she had a loft in Tribeca, and the elevator opened right into her apartment. I was like, I've never seen anything like that. I didn't know it was possible. If the white man gives you anything, just remember when he gets ready he will take it right back. We have to take for ourselves. I remember when Muhammad Ali got beaten the first time. I remember when Lennox Lewis got beaten the first time, Sugar Ray Leonard, Mike Tyson. All of those were legendary fighters, and they came back, and that's what made them different, what they did after they got beat. I always felt that everything that happened was incredibly exhilarating and massively puzzling at the same time. I can even remember, when I was 6 or 7, digging a hole beneath a tree. And I would go into this tomb, this cave that I had made, and would lie there, meditating, for hours. I didn't lose my smile from the first to the last match at Arsenal. I remember when I left I wanted to thank everyone, even the dressing room staff. A mustache really defines your face. My dad had a mustache when I was growing up, and I can still remember when he shaved it, he looked like a completely different person. I remember when I was working at Sprint, I'd work on my birthday, New Year's Day, and even Christmas Eve. I'm just used to working on my birthday, so I'll be celebrating it afterward. I remember it was Dr. Seuss' birthday, and I got to read to the little ones and that was just an awesome experience. I remember when I was a young knucklehead and having that access to an after-school program in my community. It's something that hits home to me and something I wanted to always be a part of. When you reminisce, you don't say, remember that time you got sued by so-and-so? No, you say, remember when we played here and it was unbelievable. And we went out for that incredible meal and that funny thing happened? Those are the important moments. I remember when I was a kid, as a refugee in Egypt, every day, there was always a hope that we'd get to leave tomorrow and we'd get to go somewhere. I remember when I was 5 living on Pulaski Street in Brooklyn, the hallway of our building had a brass banister and a great sound, a great echo system. I used to sing in the hallway. I remember when I first came to Washington. For the first 6 months you wonder how the hell you ever got here. For the next 6 months you wonder how the hell the rest of them ever got here. I remember when I first encountered anthropocentrism. I was in primary school and, in preparation for our confirmation, the class was learning about the afterlife. I remember when I was writing The Tin Drum, I had the totally misguided idea of giving Oscar Matzerath a sister, and he just wouldn't have it. There was no space for a sister, yet I had the character of the sister in my head. In fact, I used her in later novels, in Cat and Mouse and Dog Years, Tula Pokrisky. Remember, when God is executing his plan in our lives, he also designs and arranges events which continue to unfold until his purpose is revealed. I remember when the Berlin Wall fell and suddenly intractable problems get solved. I still have my unemployment books, and I remember when I worked for the sanitation department and the post office. In general, questions are fine, you can always seize upon the parts of them that interest you and concentrate on answering those. And one has to remember when answering questions that asking questions isn't easy either, and for someone who's quite shy to stand up in an audience to speak takes some courage. I am naturally anti-slavery. If slavery is not wrong, nothing is wrong. I cannot remember when I did not so think and feel. I love Agassi. I really followed him a lot when I was a teenager and remember when guys like him and Michael Chong were just unstoppable. He was really inspiring. Every match was so dramatic and exciting. The guy played with a lot of heart. My father is an architect, so I often think like a designer or an architect. I remember when I was admiring buildings, would look up at them and see this perspective and this awesome power of the monument in front of me. We have so much pride in welcoming these passengers onto the plane, and they have so much pride in travel. It's something that I definitely always remember, when I'm playing a scene on the plane, just to imbue everything with that sense of excitement. I couldn't be an ingenue today, because the business has changed. I remember when you could dress for a premiere just by putting on a cute top. Now you have to be perfect and fabulous in every way, or you're ridiculed. I can remember when the air was clean and sex was dirty. I love my tattoo and I think it looks great. It's like an old pair of jeans, it's beat up. I remember when I first got it outlined. I'm like, why don't more guys do this? Then I realized the pain. The influence of Beicheng is immense. I remember when I was in the 9th or 10th standard we went to watch the Durand Cup in Delhi. Beicheng was there. We just wanted to touch them. I remember when Heath Ledger talked about playing the Joker. I always used to look out of the side of my eye, going, yeah, actors. But there really is a darkness when you are playing someone psychotic, you have to go there mentally. I served 18 months in Northern Ireland and that was very scary. I remember when we were told, do you want the good news or the bad news first? We wanted the good news, we're going to Cyprus. The bad news? We're going to Northern Ireland first. All the black blokes looked at each other and thought, that's really funny. I'm dating myself by saying this, but I was the test audience for Space Invaders. I remember when that was the first game that wasn't a pinball game. I spent a lot of money on Space Invaders, in the form of quarters, of course. Life is so fast. And I still remember when I came up to the big leagues and played as if it were yesterday. Time flies. I've been thinking of humorous things since I can't remember when. All the way through elementary school, all the way through junior high, all the way through high school, through college and after college. I was thinking of the same kinds of things that I say in front of an audience now. I remember when the palm trees were short and Tomorrowland was modern. It's sad for us old enough to remember when directors ruled, and films were substantially better than they are today. But it's hard to argue with those kinds of grosses. You know how old I am? I'm so old. I remember when Letterman used to be funny and it was presidents who were serious. That's how old I am. I remember when we ignored Europe and we were totally committed to the Commonwealth and the former empire, and thought imperial preference was the only thing which enabled us to survive. That was a mistake. And it's a similar mistake to feel Britain can't be a hugely successful country, economically and in any other way, outside the EU. I remember when I'm Moving On came out, and we got the response we did. I thought, man, this could be for real. That was the first time it dawned on me what we had. I remember when my daughter, Marina, was born. The second I laid eyes on her, I was in love, and I had never felt that way before. I couldn't believe it. Visit our website for more quotes, quoting.com.